At this hour, investigators are searching the site of one of India's worst aviation disasters. And India's prime minister met with the lone survivor one day after an Air India flight fell from the sky, killing more than 240 people on board, along with several people on the ground. Matthew Whiz Buckley is a former American Airlines and FedEx pilot. He's also a retired Navy FA-18 fighter pilot, a Top Gun grad, and the founder of No Fallen Heroes Foundation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and discuss all of this.
Good morning, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And we do know that the plane itself, according to officials there, only made it just over about 600 feet or so elevation before it did come crashing down. So I did want to ask you what that says overall about the aircraft in general.
Well, Josh, let's lead with MOTO, master of the obvious. Airliners simply don't get airborne and then settle right back into the ground. So something, and sadly, 70 to 80% of civilian aviation mishaps are pilot error. So initially watching some of the grainy footage, and again, let me hedge real quick, 100% speculation on my part. Obviously, the official report will get into everything, but the flaps don't seem to be configured correctly for takeoff, which is pretty hard to do in an aircraft like the 787. They have something called Whiz. Not me, but the takeoff configuration warning system. If you advance the throttles without the flaps in the right setting, the jet's going to yell at you, and you're going to see a lot of visual indications in the cockpit like, hey, man, we're not configured correctly for takeoff. So could be a potential flap issue, or, and this is well within the realm of possibility, once they did get airborne and the pilot not flying, PNF, the pilot not flying, when he went to go put the landing gear up, he put the flaps up instead. Can that happen? Absolutely. It has absolutely happened before in the past. So if this was an early flap retraction, it's India, it's hot. That aircraft was full of people and full of fuel. So hot, heavy, and early flap retraction, the jet's going to settle right back down to the ground like it did. One other thing, Josh, and again, throwing it up on the speculation board, is a complete loss of thrust. For whatever reason, fill in the blank. Anything from tainted fuel. So there might have been a problem with the fuel, or something electronic. As I just alluded to, these aircraft are flying computers. And did something happen with the computer that actually schedules fuel flow to the engine? So complete loss of thrust. But we do know that the pilot or the co-pilot, whoever, got a Mayday call out, and something happened, either absolute pilot error or mechanical.
On that same note, we did see a Mayday call that was issued there right afterward, right before the crash did happen. So what does that say about maybe the nature of the emergency itself?
I got to be honest with you, Josh. That's the least of my worries, is getting out a Mayday call. When you're airborne for about 30 to 50 seconds and things are going wrong, getting out a Mayday call makes zero sense to me. Day one of flight training for the United States Navy, they told us A and C, aviate, navigate, communicate, meaning if anything goes wrong, fly the airplane. Once you got whatever's wrong under control, then point yourself in the appropriate direction. The last thing on your list of things to do is communicate. Trust me, if I had the last 50 seconds of my life on this planet, I wouldn't be worried about talking over the radio. I'd be worried about getting that airplane away from the ground as quick as possible.
A lot of times we hear about the flight data, the cockpit voice recorders. How pivotal are they? What do they tell us about exactly what played out here?
They tell you absolutely everything, Josh. And with each iteration of a new aircraft, those flight control systems and the recording devices get even more Gucci. I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you that GE, Boeing, they have a lot of data right now. I don't know if you remember years ago, the MH370 incident, right? That aircraft, even though nobody knows where it ultimately ended up, was still pinging and sending data back to the mothership. So the engines made by General Electric and the aircraft made by Boeing, a lot of data gets sent to the mothership. So I guarantee you right now, investigators probably have a pretty good clue of what happened. It sounds like they already recovered a couple of the black boxes. So you're going to know sooner rather than later about what exactly happened with this mishap. This isn't going to be a scratch our chin for the next year to figure out what went wrong.
Given what I would say is the high profile nature of this crash, it's not just being covered in India and surrounding areas. Of course, we're covering it all throughout the U.S. What steps can maybe the aviation industry take to maintain or restore public confidence in air travel safety, especially after all of the incidents that have been reported? Of course, you have to remember that we're reporting on the incidents that happen, not each and every safe flight that does happen as well.
Well, you nailed it, my brother. Again, I'm going to age myself. I'm a little old, and let's just say for the first third of my aviation career, people didn't have cell phones. Everybody has a cell phone now. There are CCT on corner of buildings. Even your local 7-Eleven has, HD cameras recording. So these incidents, right after they happen, I mean, people are going live on Instagram or Facebook or whatever platform is the coolest platform right now. So this is instantaneous people on the scene reporting. I'm old enough to remember when a mishap happened, man, it was in the paper a couple days later, or, you heard about it a long time. So I think you nailed it. Even with all of these incidents year to date, many of them have been very spectacular, right, Josh? I mean, the midair collision between a helicopter and an RJ in DC. That was followed by a flipping RJ in Toronto. So I get it. There's a lot of cell phone footage immediately of these incidents. So that's gonna heighten the public's awareness. So I'm gonna remind people, don't listen to Uncle Whiz. Go to ntsb.gov and enter the date from last year and this year, and you're gonna be shocked at what you find. Why? Because we actually had more mishaps last year than we did this year. Quick reminder, though, obviously Air India is Air India. It's not a U.S. carrier, and that's not going to be reflected on that site. But it's still, endemic of what's going on. It's not a joke to say, Josh, you've heard me say this before. It's more dangerous driving to and from the airport than it is actually flying. Sadly, today in the United States, approximately 120 people are going to die in a motor vehicle accident. It's just tragic. Happily, 120 people aren't dying in the United States today due to an aircraft incident. Knock on wood.
All right, Matthew Whiz Buckley, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and help break it all down. We appreciate it. Anything else that you want to add here before I let you go?
No, just over in Israel and Iran, Josh, I flew missions off the Abraham Lincoln and the Kitty Hawk. We'd make a left turn in the Persian Gulf to go over Iraq. But during a lot of our downtime, we were doing a lot of strike planning into Iran. So it was pretty interesting to see you all reporting some of the targets that years ago, now that I can talk about, that we were actually strike planning against. Looks like they don't exist anymore. But I do pray for peace on earth. War, death, destruction simply is not the way to go, folks. So I pray that they find some sort of resolution soon.
All right. Matthew Whiz Buckley, thank you again, as always, for taking the time to be here with us.
Thanks, Josh. God bless. We'll see you.